Put down your pitchforks, people, and welcome to the latest episode of Triple Takeover, the fortnightly podcast all about plastic robots and whatever unhealthy snacks Liam has been having for his lunch this week. Today, we're stoking the fires of controversy a little by exploring some of the more hotly contested topics in the Transformers fandom. I'm talking about the kind of stuff that gets internet message boards all a-fluster with correctile dysfunction, making angry keyboard warriors everywhere lose their cool before someone inevitably deploys the iconic prowl table flip .gif. Or is it GIF? That's just the kind of contentious debate you can expect tonight, folks, so hold on to your butts. With me as ever are my two truly cantankerous co-hosts. Firstly, we have a man whose ability to mouth off incorrect opinions is already the stuff of legend, from thinking that no one wanted to hear a podcast about Omnibots, to talking smack about Generation 1 Grimlock. It's M.A.S. from Transformers Square Wrong.
At your service.
Next, we have someone who erroneously imagines Judd Nelson in all kinds of unusual places, and is pathologically unable to reference a simple product ID number without wanting to stuff in a few extra O's. It's Liam from Toybox Notebox.
This isn't fair because that's too funny and now I can't say anything because I just want to laugh.
Gotta live with it, mate. My name is Sixo, but more on my own faultless adherence to all things factual later, as together we are Triple Takeover and we're here to set the world to rights. Or maybe just shit up. But before all of that, how are you both doing, chaps?
Brilliant, especially after that intro.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, wow, this is going to be a fun night.
Yeah, so, well, we're all here to discuss some controversial topics, of course, but hopefully neither of you are feeling too controversial tonight. You both look looking well.
Feeling well, quite, how it goes.
Excellent. So it's flu season out there. I've been a little bit under the weather myself. I don't know about both of you, but...
I'm drinking Lemsip instead of something alcoholic
Right,
for the first time on this podcast. That's where we're at.
And I'm sat here with an old rum and coke in hand because I thought that was going to be the mood du jour.
You two, I live in the Arctic Circle and I'm fine. I've got a beer.
You're conditioned to it. You told us the heating is on everywhere you go 24 hours a day, so...
Not outside.
I don't know.
It's definitely not on outside.
You're all kitted out for it though, aren't you? You're all like, you go outside there and you've got like 18 layers on. You look like that episode with Joey where he wears all of Chandler's clothes.
Are you fat shaming me now?
That's literally the opposite of what I said, that you were wearing a lot of clothes.
18 layers though. That's dangerously accurate.
Yeah, sounds about right. I've been around your neck of the woods, not specifically to Iceland, but I've been to Norway, and that was I remember it well.
Yeah.
How much all the thermal undergarments and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we had snow last week. No, scratch that. We had snow this week. It was this
I was
week.
mystified by that photo you put on Twitter the other day when you were outdoors looking at the northern lights or whatever, but there was no snow. I just assumed where you live is snow 100% of the time.
Well, the thing is, it was so clear that you just knew the temperature was plummeting. And sure enough, I think it was the next day we had snow.
Wow. I just assumed like everything there was built on snow. Like all your houses had skis on the bottom so you could move them out easy.
Oh, the problem is it snows and then the next day it rains heavily, gets rid of the snow, and then everything is wet. And then overnight it's sub-zero and everything freezes, and then it's proper treacherous for walking, for driving, for everything.
Ice skates all around.
Whereas here we get like a bit of rain, or maybe like a quarter inch of snow, something like that, and all of the trains stop running and everybody like loses their minds and can't get to work and whatever else. It's a bit sad. This
country shuts down every time there's any kind
really
of
does.
minute change in the weather. If it goes up a degree, like everyone's like, oh, it's too hot, everyone's stay indoors. There's a hose pipe ban. If it rains a little bit, there's floods.
Yeah, I remember my favourite being late for work one day was because the trains had stopped running, and it was middle of summer, and they were like, oh, it's the wrong type of heat for the trains to run. And it's like, what? Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure someone listening to this maybe knows more about that than I do, but it didn't really make you feel much better about the situation.
I think we've safely confirmed that no one on this podcast knows anything about trains.
Well, that's Liam. He thinks we all know everything about
you two
trains.
over there, your anoraks and your notepads.
I genuinely, anybody that's listened to that recording of that mini-sode is going to know that is just not the case at all.
Completely mystified. I was walking to work the other morning and saw a tram, and the first thing I thought of was M.A.S. I thought he was going to pop out of a bush and tell me what it was, as it was going past.
I would have just said, it's a tram.
No, you wouldn't. You'd have told me the official designation and, how many wheels it's got.
Yeah, and you would have put a 0 in it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Can I tell my great story about that actually, before I forget?
Sure. You built it up a bit now.
So, you know how you guys always make fun of the fact I say MPO?
Vaguely familiar, yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is a running theme. So, you also know that I go attend college on Tuesday nights. I'm doing a maths course.
Yep.
Right.
So
yeah.
I answered a question that the teacher guy, professor or whatever his name is, was asking, and I got it right. Except he then did that thing where he said, "What's the answer?" And I went, "Oh, it's 6-0." And he goes, "It is, but are you sure?" And then I started to doubt myself, but very confidently I'm there going, "Yeah, absolutely." And then he proceeded to go on this 10-minute explanation of how saying "O" is wrong instead of 0.
Oh, wonderful.
And I was literally sat there in front of this whole class of people, and he's writing it on the blackboard and all this. And he's like, "I'm not having a go at you, but, people do this. If you wrote this on an exam..."
Does he listen to the podcast?
I think my favourite part was that it was 6-0 as
Yeah,
well.
it was.
Why is he asking you questions about me?
It was one of those questions like that, and because he was asking about extra digits or whatever, and I was just rounding it up, and then I was sat there and I burst out laughing because I was like, "This is going to be a great story for the podcast." I was like, "I can't believe this is actually happening in real life."
I love the idea of you telling like the podcast story in your maths class, though, being like, "Hey guys, there's this really funny bit on our podcast, yeah," and then we'll just being like, "Huh?"
I was telling the tutor afterwards, I was like, "That was actually really funny because of this," and he was like, "Yeah, sure, cool story, dude."
Right, so as ever, don't forget that we are sponsored officially by tfsource.com, so you can check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. Big thank you to them for sponsoring the pod. We'll do a little segment about their site and see what's in stock a little bit kind of later on in the episode, around the middle or so. Maybe not specifically the middle, but, around then we'll get to it, so that should be fun. And we've also got a bit of an old Patreon, don't we, Maz?
Yes, we do have a Patreon, the Triple Takeover Patreon. We have 4 glorious tiers, and those in the highest Sixo's Butler tier, they get lots of exclusive perks like minisodes, and of course, everyone will have been treated to a minisode very recently, the cassette combiner one, so you all will have very clearly seen what you're missing on a regular fortnightly basis. So you want to sign up for those, you want to be in on all those in-jokes at the ground level, and I want to say a big thank you to all our patrons. Get it? Patrons, because they pay.
Oh, man.
And it's Tron.
Can't believe you actually went there.
Yeah, I did.
They're paying Tron. That's a different podcast, isn't it?
But yes, sign up. It's patreon.com/Triple Takeover. Go there, sign up, have things.
Surely you have to have a listen to the free one. They already will have signed up, so, welcome on board, guys.
You'd hope, wouldn't you? It can't just be me that heard that when you were saying about 4 glorious tears and imagined it to the tune of what's that Christmas song? 5 Gold Rings, Partridge in a Pear Tree.
12 Days of Christmas.
Yeah.
All you're doing, you're just creating enough rope to hang yourself with at TF Nation for things that people then ask you to do. That's all that you're doing.
Well, I'm more imagining it on a T-shirt. Do you know what I mean? Just like 4 glorious tears. I don't know, something like that.
That's how Christmas offerings sorted out.
There are 4 tears.
Exactly. Well, it sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So yeah, and we do have a Redbubble as well where you can buy merch. So check that out. We'll drop the address later on. Spare me doing it now, trying to remember what it is. But you can check us out on Redbubble as well, where you can get loads of that merch. So we do make T-shirts and mugs and all kinds of good stuff. So
leggings.
A lot
we
of
make leggings.
Yeah, we do make leggings.
Can I make an on-topic suggestion? Christmas stocking. Can they do that in Redbubble? A Triple Takeover Christmas stocking?
I don't know, actually. I don't know if they do that or not. I've not seen that option.
You just want to put a Santa hat on Razor Beast or something?
Yeah, on a little Christmas stocking. Like everyone leaves out for Santa on Christmas Eve.
They do socks. They could just be regular sized socks for very tiny, for micromasters.
That works.
Whatever. Maybe that'll have to do. Right, and tonight the topic is controversial opinions, which is a bit of a weird one, I know, but we talked about this and said, wouldn't it be fun, famous last words, to talk about some of the more polarizing topics within the Transformers fandom? And I'm sure that when we get to talking about a few of them, people will kind of go, oh God, this, it's those ones. It's the very kind of classic things that as soon as you start talking about them, inevitably it creates a bit of debate, and people can't really agree. And it's that kind of stuff. And if anything, there's a little bit of catharsis about this, is we're going to attempt anyway to form a kind of consensus on some of these topics and see if we can put it to bed, as it were, do you know what I mean? Kind of settle the debate once and for all. So we're going to start with one of the most infamous topics of all. This is probably the poster boy of contentious topics for Transformers, if you will. It's Rumble and Frenzy, which is blue, which is red. So, of course, this is a big one. Lots of people debate this. This is like the classic debated topic in Transformers, isn't it? Because, of course, there are multiple sources for these two characters. There are toys, there are cartoons, well, the cartoon, the comics. They've existed in both colours in toys. They've existed in media in both colours as well. But what are your guys' thoughts then on Rumble and Frenzy? Red or blue?
I mean, this is the same for me as being asked whether the glass is half empty or half full. If you're emptying the glass, it's half empty. If you're filling the glass, it's half full. And this is just, I have the most boring philosophy on this, honestly. It's like, the toy is called Frenzy, the blue one. So when I refer to the blue toy, I use the word Frenzy. And that's what I call it in my collection. Oh, has anyone got a nice condition Frenzy? I'm looking for one. When it's the cartoon, the blue one is called Rumble. So I refer to him as Rumble. Hey, did you see what Rumble did?
Who are you having these conversations with?
Yeah, no, like his little toys. That's who he's having them with, aren't you?
Hey, did you see what Rumble did? Like, who's that with? Is that with your wife?
He's holding up Rumble and Frenzy to go, hey, did you see what you did? Yes, who did?
If I'm talking about Rumble, I'm talking to Frenzy.
Right, okay.
But yeah, it's just I just don't see why there needs to be any more discourse about it.
Well, you would say that, and yet somehow it's been, 37 years now, and this topic is still raging. I mean, it's still to the point of, you mention it online, and it creates a lot of debate. I'm kind of with you. Do you know what I mean? That there is a very logical answer to it, and yet somehow you still cannot post about this. You can't post a picture of those two toys without someone bringing it up.
Yeah.
In the comments, which is always mad to me.
You know why that is? It's because they want to be right. That's it. They want to tell you they're right, even though they're not. It doesn't matter. The red one or the blue one. Who cares?
Toys, isn't it? So are you going with a wholehearted both then?
Well, yeah. The toy is blue, Frenzy. The toy is Frenzy, the blue one. And the cartoon one is Rumble. And I don't know about the comics one.
Comics was the same as the toys. So in the Marvel comics, Rumble was the red one, red and blue. Not red and blue, red and black, sorry. Don't get it even more confusing. Although it was kind of actually red and blue because of the way that they shade the comics and things. So he was the red one in the comics.
It's funny because actually the recolored Microchange cassette was red and blue. The one that came to be known as Enemy.
Enemy, yeah. Yeah, he's kind of a halfway house, if you like, of the two of them, wasn't he? So Liam, are you very much a both then? Is that your answer on the whole thing as well?
Mine's pretty much whatever Hasbro tell me it is for that particular franchise. That's what I go with. So
right.
Yes. Both of them. There we go. Both the bows.
So I feel like in some ways I feel like doesn't that kind of tip your hand though towards saying that the toys are taking precedence for you guys then in some ways? Because I mean even then, saying about Hasbro and not Sunbow, doesn't that kind of mean that the toys are the lead?
I don't know what it is about this discussion where people just don't hear the facts. and you're starting immediately. It's like, no, that's not what I said. I mean, literally, when I'm talking about the toy, the blue one is the one I refer to as Frenzy. Because it's the blue one who's the toy called Frenzy, it says on his box. And the cartoon, look at you smirking away. This is exactly what you wanted, isn't it? I always said you were a stirrer, and that's exactly what you're doing.
I don't know what you're talking about.
For me, they can be whichever one you want it to be. The amount of times I've had the toy Frenzy or Rumble, the blue one, there we go. And he's been Rumble in that picture. That's been quite happy to be that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah. But I mean, look, let's put the argument to one side for a second. I completely agree with you. Like, I'm very much. Firstly, I don't really care. Do you know? So there is an element of like these are toys, and it's. I suppose to me, the thing I find most interesting is that it creates such debate. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing that squarely for me is like, why is it such a big topic? And the fact that people kind of feel the need to kind of take it to that nth degree of, as you said, Liam, having to kind of almost be right, having to like kind of stamp their firm opinion on it and let it be known. Because I agree with you.
The opinion you didn't ask for.
Yeah, because there's multiple sources for the correct answer, and it really does depend on what you're referring to. If you're talking toys or comic, Rumble is red. If you're talking cartoon, he's blue. So I completely agree with that and see the logic of that. But yeah, no, if I was posing a shot and I was taking a photo, then yeah, if I was doing a toon scene, then yes, Rumble would be blue for me.
These sorts of arguments always mystify me. I know we're quite early on, but it's like literally these toys can be anything you want them to be. You know, you're not like beholden to what Hasbro tell you they're called, are you? It's like we have this with Slag and Slug at the minute, and if you call him Slug as Hasbro do, someone will be Slag and vice versa. But it's like it doesn't matter. It's your toy at the end of the day. It's whoever you want it to be in your own mind.
People get very hung up on the names of these things and the kind of identity. It's like Autobot Jazz and stuff like that, isn't it? When people get those kind of slightly altered names, people get really kind of upset about it.
Do
and it's
people
like,
even notice that? Like,
yeah, surprisingly.
Does that even cross your mind for a moment when you are purchasing a new toy who is Jazz to you? And
not me, but people do.
Sixo, when you're doing one of these toon recreations and you have the little blue cassette guy, and you say in your caption something like, Rumble. Maybe it's the scene where Starscream is telling Rumble his time will come at the beginning of the pilot. And you put in quotations the name Rumble. When you then have the little photo icon where you explain what toy is in your photograph, you'll then use the word Frenzy, won't you? Because that's what the toy is.
Well, if it was a Frenzy toy, then yes, I would. If it was like the G1 Frenzy toy, yes, I would put G1 Frenzy.
You're all for engagement. I suggest you engineer a post to be as controversial as possible, where you recreate a scene where you have to use the name Rumble in the quote, but then you have to say what toy it is, and it needs to be a Frenzy toy.
That would be fun. That would be fun to see. It would get a lot of responses, I've no doubt, because it always does. And that's kind of why, if anything, that's why we're talking about it. That's why I brought it up, is because it's just one of those topics that will never die. And, as much as I'm like, we can give the definitive answer here, we can be all sensible and logical and whatever. I know that, in a week's time, whatever it may be, maybe it'll be more, it'll come up again. It will be a debate again, for sure, because it's going to go on and on and on. So the one that actually I think is interesting is the Masterpiece toys, because it follows the original toys.
Just going to ask. I've forgotten. MP18, wasn't it? That was the cassettes.
You missed an O.
I'd need to check the numbers, to be completely honest. No. MP18 is one of the Datsuns. 18 is Prowl, I think.
So 13 was Soundwave, 14 was Red Alert.
No, 18's Blue Streak, sorry. 18's Blue Streak, 17 is Prowl.
So it must have been 15 and 16 then with the cassettes.
I think it is, yeah.
So what was the blue one called? I've actually completely forgotten. What was the Masterpiece?
They follow the G1 toys.
That's
this is the weird thing. So it was pre-Masterpiece being supremely cartoon and all of that. And I imagine if they did them now, or if they were to do a Soundwave version 2, which wouldn't surprise me at all, let's be honest, I've no doubt that they'll call them by the cartoon names. But yeah, the original ones, those cassettes to go with MP13, Rumble is red and Frenzy is blue.
But they've never really gone with cartoon names. It's all been Japanese G1 names. For example, Alert and Lambor. So they've never actually really stuck to cartoon.
Convoy.
Laserwave. Exactly, yeah. So
yeah, very true.
They kind of stick to their own original naming convention.
They've got their own thing. But yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? It's just interesting that those are specifically the names that they gave them. So I do think they do it the other way around now, though, but maybe I'd be wrong.
It's amazing how this all came to be as well, because if you really wanted to go down the road of picking the names, it would be obviously Bob Budiansky had to give names to toys to then be featured in Marvel Comics, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously we've got the spin out, Sunstreaker, all that kind of nonsense that was all very confusing. Is it anywhere remotely as confusing for the cassettes, or is it really clearly laid out what's what there? Because that would have been the first instance that the blue toy would have been named, right?
I think it's been explained how it happened. I think it was clearly, if memory serves, I'd need to refresh my memory, but I think it's just literally a cartoon mix-up, and that's that. I don't think there's the same kind of debate about what went on behind the scenes, with Sunstreaker and Sideswipe and all of that. I think it's literally the toys with the toys. Bob named them what they are, and then someone at Hasbro just got them the wrong way around. And I think it's been confirmed that is just what it is.
The thing is, we say the cartoon got it the wrong way around, but maybe it's the colours they got the wrong way around, because obviously the name Rumble is really descriptive, and it's the perfect name for the little cassette that causes tidal waves. And
yeah.
So that's the perfect name to use for the character that features quite heavily in the first episode of the Transformers animated show. So I guess the mix-up would have been like, well, do we use the blue one or the red one?
Yeah,
I think the blue one's probably better looking. Let's go with that one.
I think it's literally that. It's purely that, because Frenzy is definitely the name that is more associated with the one that, you know, the in the tech spec and all of that has that particular set of skills, because it's all to do with, I forget exactly how it's said now, but it's a name that, it's abilities that
wasn't it
fit
the
name
rolling
Frenzy.
of the drums? He rolls his drums. Because we had this, I actually asked Bob, didn't I? Well, someone else had mentioned it, and then I tagged Bob, and it turned out that it
I'd
was,
forgotten that.
it was about the rolling of the drums on the cassette causes these vibrations.
Okay, right, yeah, got you. I do recall that now. That's interesting. Yeah, and obviously Rumble's name is very particular there, but I think it's just a colour swap in the cartoon. I don't think it was about the names or anything like that. I think Rumble was meant to be Rumble, and at some point maybe he was, you know, black and red, but became blue, and that's it. So,
I think that's the question. Was the colour swap in the cartoon deliberate? Was it an aesthetic choice that was made?
Could well have been, or it might have just been a mix-up.
Because that was the Decepticons, really, wasn't it? Blue, little bit of purple, bit of those kind of generic on jets that, yeah, who knows?
If anything, in the cartoon, it kind of became a bit moot then when you also got Frenzy with pile driver ability as well, you know, and it kind of, you know, at that point, like, who gives a stuff? Do you know what I mean? Because they do the same thing.
I mean, weren't there multiple rumbles in that one scene where they're lining up by the dam? Like, there were multiple reflectors, multiple rumbles, just...
A lot of reflectors, a lot of seekers. I don't recall if there were multiple. Maybe there were multiple cassettes. Actually, there quite probably were. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So, but yeah, I mean, it's what Liam said. It's all kind of nonsense stuff, really, isn't it? It's just, it doesn't actually matter. It's just fascinating that we, as, you know, grown adults, continue to have this major debate even to this day.
It's like trying to apply rules and logic to places where there aren't any, are there? It's like if you say, like, there's just an animation error, people have to create a character or find some way of, you know, rationalizing it within that sort of world.
It's one of those where you can't, it's what we said earlier, you can't tweet about it without putting the entire and very full context within your tweet to make sure that everyone understands that you know which one is which in which context, and you do understand.
You have to issue a clarification, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. There's like a whole like sodding disclaimer that needs to be attached to every tweet or post or whatever about it, just to make sure that everybody understands that you are fully in on the joke.
That would be so funny if you just posted 3 photos of the blue one, called it whatever you did, and then the 4th photo was just a super long disclaimer on Twitter. It's like some...
I might have to do that from now. I'm going to write something up, bit of boilerplate. Do you know what I mean? And just, just sort of sign it at the bottom or whatever. Like I am fully, you know, aware of the context here and everything. Cause,
so what's the conclusion? Like, if we're putting the Transformers world to rights,
let's put it to bed. So are we all agreed? So it's source dependent, right? It's not like the most definitive solution in the world. But if you're talking cartoon, Rumble is blue. If you're talking toys or comic or pretty much anything else, Rumble is red.
We can go with that.
Yep.
Liam, you sound dissatisfied.
Well, I'm sort of more of the opinion of it's whoever you want it to be. Call it Steve. Call it Jeff.
Right.
No, we established very clearly that Steve was a member of Steve.
Oh yeah,
Box.
sorry.
We did.
He was the gorilla or something. I don't know.
But yeah, whatever the source is, that makes the most sense, doesn't it?
Well, that's round 1 done. So we've done pretty well with old Rumble and Frenzy now. Let's mix it up a little bit, and this one should be, I think, a really interesting one. We're going to talk a bit more about toys now, and the topic is about transformations. And this is one that I'm really interested in because I think that there's definitely no right answer with this one. It is very much a matter of opinion. It's regarding transformations and fake parts. So do fake parts, or faux parts as some people like to call them, do they spoil transformations, or should Transformers totally move away from it and, you know, never feature them ever again? So I am, of course, talking about, well, the classic being, you know, that everyone thinks of is MP10. Previously MP1, of course, with the 2 grills. So he has 1 grill for cab mode, 1 grill for robot mode, and so it's a fake part. It comes out during transformation to make the robot mode look a certain way, but the grill that you see in his robot mode you will never see in the truck mode. So it's sort of superfluous. And we've seen this very recently with stuff like MP52 Starscream, which has a fake cockpit I'm going to say it right there. Fake what? Fake cockpit chest versus the real cockpit on the jet, which actually slides in behind it as one example. So are these solutions, because they're nothing new, but they are becoming more and more prevalent, I think. Are they ruining transformations? Are they keeping you up at night? What do we think, lads?
I don't mind. As long as the toy's good, I genuinely don't mind. I like parts forming. I don't prefer one or the other. I just take it on a case-by-case basis.
Well, parts forming is a let's keep parts forming to one side, because that's, I think, a very separate topic all by itself. But parts forming it sort of implies that stuff comes off, doesn't it, and sort of sets to one side. Whereas this is very much about faux parts that are built in, as it were. I guess there is a kind of periphery or crossover maybe with parts forming to some degree.
But yeah, I don't mind the fake parts. I mean, sometimes I do get a little bit of a yearning for how the vintage toys felt. Like, when you flip side swipes chest over and stuff like that. And then when you see that on modern toys, you see other bits. Like I say with Optimus Prime's grill, it's a fake one. But for the most part, as long as the toy's good, I don't mind.
M.A.S.K?
I'm going to have to go really boring again with the answer. And just like, it's not a fake part. It's a real part. It's on the toy.
Yeah.
All right? So just put that fake nonsense away. Secondly, does it make the transformation bad? I don't know who said it, but one of the great freedoms in life is being able to decide how you react to something. Yeah. So if you've set your expectation to the point where you are disappointed and you decide to be frustrated, you decide to be miserable about something, you've got to go back and look at your own, what did I decide needed to happen? If you've decided that a transformation needs to be 100%, I don't know, is the word even pure, where every single vehicle or alt mode part moves in a way that it goes to where it's supposed to be in robot mode, maybe, and this is all based on how it looked in an animation model that, let's face it, those original ones weren't drawn and created to the kind of degree where they would be 100% replicated in a physical design. So when you say, is it disappointing, are you actually saying that you are disappointing that a designer of a toy did not find a way to achieve aesthetic perfection in both modes while having a 100-step transformation and still using the same part that actually doesn't look remotely the same in two modes? Because you know better that it should have had an extra flip. They should have done this. I don't know, man. Does it really make a transformation not fun? Like, do you go through the transformation on MP10 and get to the end of it and go, damn, that was a fun transformation. Oh, hang on a minute. No, refund. If that's where you're at, then wow, I didn't realize I was so passionate about this.
I am as well. And again, not to be boring. I feel like actually the three of us are pretty reasonable with this kind of stuff. I was thinking about this when we were doing this topic, and we'll always try and find the kind of the nuances and the shades of grey and the kind of the understanding behind what's trying to be achieved and things like that. But I have to say, fake parts is one, and I agree with you. It's a silly name for them, but for the sake of it, to identify what they are or whatever. But I'm with you. I do not see the problem with it, and I think for me the funny thing is that people consider it lazy. So you see some real vitriol about it online, where people get so cross about it, and I see numerous posts. People posting about toys that they don't even own, that they've got no intention of owning, and dissing them because they have some element of, quote unquote fakery or whatever, and saying that it's, it's awful, that they like pure transformations or whatever you want to call it. And I find it mad, because the bit where people refer to it as lazy is the bit where I have to kind of, eye roll a little bit, because it's actually the complete opposite of lazy. That's the thing. Like, if you take something like MP52 as the most recent example in my mode, that's the Starscream. I mean, could they have had it where the cockpit flipped round to become the chest? Yes, they absolutely could have done that. And if you've ever held 52 in your hands, it's a blooming engineering marvel. Do you know what I mean? Say what you will about the toy or how it looks or any of that, but there's the engineering is out of this world. It's insanely good. And there's no doubt in my mind that they could have had the cockpit rotate round and clip into place if that's what they'd wanted to do. But they took the decision.
Wouldn't have fulfilled the brief if it had done that.
Exactly. They took the decision. The brief is, look as like it's been ripped out the cartoon. So they took the decision to include extra parts, additional engineering, more development, more all of that to get that result. So how's that lazy?
It's the opposite. It's the direct. Lazy would have been just to do the 12
Exactly.
and keep it like G1 was, because it doesn't quite look right, but at least there's no fake parts. Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on that one.
Yeah. I think it's kind of mad, and I get that people might be, I don't know, they might have a preference that everything sort of slides into place or whatever, but I think maybe it's dependent on the type of toy. I think it's what you said, Maz. It's some toys like Masterpiece is the obvious one, but even more recent War for Cybertron stuff is all designed to very specifically reference and homage a design that is 30, 40 years old, that is normally a cartoon, that is not exactly, some of those things were mocked up off pictures and things like that of the original toys. So they don't really look like anything. They're not fully fleshed out 3D models. So, the designers are having to make these things work in actuality. So maybe it's a preference on toy design then, if you want toys that look like the cartoon or not.
Does any toy have to achieve what a Transformer does? I mean, imagine... if anything is going to be called lazy, can we maybe talk about those original animation models then?
Yeah.
And what the current designers have to accomplish is they have to create realistic alt modes, which also kind of look like the lazy animation models in vehicle mode for Masterpiece. And then they have to be complex, multi-stage, high parts count transformations that make everyone go, ooh, engineering. And then they have to look like a robot that, with all those vehicle parts, has somehow ended up curved and smooth and featureless in some respects in robot mode, and be posable to the kind of nth degree and solid. And this is what other toy line is achieving this?
I know.
And yet it's not good enough.
You get all the armchair toy engineers out, don't you, with the photoshops and all of that, and moving bits around, and like, this bit could go here, and why do they need to include this extra fake part? It could have just bent up from that angle, and you get all the little red circles and arrows going
mistransformed.
on.
That's always my favourite.
Yeah,
in all stock photography and on display by the people who made it and designed it.
Clearly that bit is meant to clip into here, even though I've got no actual physical knowledge of this toy in hand. I've never seen it in the flesh. I don't know what's going on. I've purely seen a very blurry picture of it from this, someone snapped at a convention. I can tell you categorically now that this is mistransformed. It always makes me...
That's the argument, isn't it? It's like, shouldn't I have the right to expect that a toy that costs $300 should not include fake parts? Well, listen, if you want $300, what are you paying for? You're paying for amazing engineering, you're paying for modern toy technology, you're paying for vehicle licenses, you're paying for accurate in both modes and every accessory under the sun to make sure that no cartoon nook and cranny is left untouched. And yet, when that is achieved with this kind of fantastic work, and believe me, it has to be achieved this way because that robot mode grill does not look like that vehicle mode grill.
Yeah, exactly.
Or chest does not look like a car bonnet in real life. If you want a real Lamborghini bonnet to look like Sideswipe's robot mode chest, that's not going to look much like a Countach. I'm sorry. So if you want all of that, that is what Masterpiece is giving you, and that has required research and development, and that has required top-level engineering to achieve that in a way that is actually sensible. Well, no, why can't the chest slide out onto... But be quiet!
Yeah,
Because that is not the aim of that line.
I like your teacher voice came out there. Be quiet. I like that.
That's the thing. I think you said the word preference. That's really the key here. It's like you create these musts and shoulds and has to be's, and then when it's not like that, you get disappointed. Whereas you could have just told yourself, I would prefer if it didn't use faux parts, but the fact that it does and achieves these two modes means that it's achieved something great, but it's probably not for me, but I can still be a happy human being and carry on.
I think that's it. It's all nuance. It's all in how... I'm not even like dictating how people should phrase things or whatever. That's not what I'm about. But there is an element of, you said, just mentally not getting upset about things and maybe just acknowledging that things can be clever even if you have a preference for something else. I don't know. It's not... faux parts forming, all of that. It's not a crime. It's not like, do you know what I mean? It shouldn't be offensive to anybody. It's a stylistic choice.
And you don't have to buy it either. That's always the thing that gets me. Like you hit on there when you said, like, if I'm paying £300, so it's like, but you don't have to pay £300 for that. If that's not for you, walk on past. There's plenty of other things that are. And I think that's because how I always buy toys is if I like them. The ones I don't like, I don't buy. But people have...
That's far too rational.
It genuinely mystifies me when I see people like complaining about this toy that they've watched 350 videos of in advance, so they know exactly what they're getting, and they've still bought it, and they still have all the same complaints, but they behave like they've been forced into buying it. It's like, I've had to buy this version of Starscream. So it's like, you don't. There's like 50 other ones, or you just wait for someone else to do something else, or no one is forcing you.
I just can't understand this thing that it would be disappointing. Like, it makes it a disappointing toy. It's almost like there was one box that you insisted this toy had to tick design-wise to make it a good toy. Well, how do you know that would have made it a better toy and transformation? What if you actually had to get that grill through that massive 300 moving parts to then reproduce its position in another mode? That might actually have been a proper nightmare.
Well, this is what I often think, actually, because, I mean, the one I would cite as in recent memory, actually, is MP44. Now, I actually do remember the first time, I'll go back a bit, actually, I remember the first time I discovered the fake grill on MP1, and I do remember being like, huh. You know what I mean? Like, quite surprised by it, actually. And I think there probably was a moment where I was like, am I cool with this? And then I was like, yeah, it's actually pretty damn clever. And but now it's at the stage with MP44 where there are a couple of bits that are faked. And the other one, actually, which is very clever, is the chest windows, because they spin round. And actually, I didn't know how it was achieved. I hadn't watched videos, any of that, before I got the thing in hand. And there had been a few mid-transformation shots that Takara had put out, but I was really keen to kind of, you know, not study them too much, and kind of, because I knew it was going to be insane, the transformation. And it's just very simple fluid engineering, because, again, it's what you said, Maz, you know, the two sources look completely different. And if you want an Optimus Prime that looks like it is peeled out of the animation, the truck looks different to the front of his chest. It's that simple, you know, around the windows. They do not look the same whatsoever. And Takara have managed it just by very simply, when the chest windows open, they rotate over and then fold back in. So you're essentially getting the back of the doors from the truck mode in his robot mode. And it's the most fluid, clever, ingenious little move. And if we're going to talk about, you know, fun transformations, or like, you know, we've often talked in the past about masterpiece moments, you know, and that little moment of delight, something that you get in a transformation where you're just like, wow, that was one for me. I remember it straight up. Like, that's really clever. You know, it's so simple, but so clever.
Well, the counter argument there is going to be that the people who are claiming that that's not as satisfying as seeing that they have created a solution that doesn't involve faux parts. And that would be their argument.
I don't know how else you could do it.
Yeah, I think my original memory of faux parts was Binaltech tracks. That's BT06, right?
Yes.
So that was just that moment where you realise that they've created a screen-accurate tracks chest as nothing more than sort of like an Easter egg, because nobody was expecting that. You know, Binaltech wasn't doing screen accuracy. And then there's just this really cool little cartoon-style chest. And it was because we weren't expecting it, we weren't entitled to it, and it turned up and it was like, hey, that's really cool. But now that we're all entitled to it, and suddenly we believe that toys should be of this quality because of what they've given us, it can be a disappointment to some, I guess.
Is there, Liam, is there lots in War for Cybertron? There are a couple of
them. Yeah, there's quite a lot of that now. They've gone that whole masterpiece route of, you know, using a lot of fake parts and lots of sort of sneaky bits. But then at the same time, a lot of those toys are quite simple. So they're, you know, there's not that much room. So okay, probably the worst offender is Spinister, where he's got the two cockpits on his legs.
Oh yeah. Of course. Now I must admit, now, as you know, I got Rotostorm and I wasn't so keen on that one, I've got to say. But it didn't offend me or anything. Do you know what I mean? But that was only because I felt that it looked really silly on the bottom of the vehicle mode. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't the fact that it was a fake part. It was just the fact that I thought the one cockpit hanging off the bottom of the helicopter looked naff.
I didn't mind it because it was designed to look like the box art, the original G1 box art, where he's got two cockpits on his legs. Yeah. And I've always quite liked that as a kid, so I was like, oh, that's I thought it was quite a novel solution of doing it. I mean, I get why people would be like, oh, it's fake, but it's a toy robot that costs like 15 quid, isn't it? You know what I mean?
No, sure.
I think that's one of the things that sort of gets lost sometimes when people do this. It's like, man, you've got like a robot coming out of a jet or whatever. A fake cockpit isn't like the strangest thing going on here.
Yeah, as I say, it wasn't the fake part that bothered me with that at all. It was just the vehicle mode look. But I think it's one of those, isn't it? You see that with a couple of War for Cybertron toys, I think, where clearly the robot mode is the priority. That's been my impression anyway. old Ironhide's feet and stuff like that. It's kind of, they've definitely prioritized the robot mode to some degree over the alt mode, and that was just one where I kind of felt that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like that comic for sure. The other one that actually I've thought of recently was I did, you guys I don't think will have seen it, but I did a video on Transcraft Beetle, which is the new third-party Masterpiece styled Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie. So it's a very screen accurate toy that transforms into a Volkswagen Beetle, or a certainly relatively faithful facsimile of one. And it's ingenious, honestly, absolutely ingenious. I mean, you can watch my video, plug, but the actual transformation, as I was doing it, I was like, what is going to happen here? And it's the very simple fact that obviously on his chest, you've got you've got something that looks like the front of a Volkswagen Beetle, except it doesn't, because even in the film, it's kind of, squashed a bit and smushed, and there's no way that you're going to get a screen accurate toy with the front of the car turning into the front of the Beetle, really. Or maybe you will, I don't know, but it'd be hard to imagine. And so instead, the actual chest ends up underneath the back of the car, and the whole front of the car is in his feet, and it all kind of unfolds from his feet and things like that. And it really is quite amazing. The whole robot mode essentially turns inside out, and it was like a real wow, And some people aren't going to like it for sure, but for my part, I was blown away by the engineering on display and the creativity. I just thought absolutely amazing.
It's surely a rod that we've all created for our own backs by insisting on screen accuracy. They wouldn't need to do it if it wasn't. Yeah. You would just have the front of the car, as the design is very clearly trying to tell you that the front of the car has ended up as his chest. You would just have the best that toy engineering could achieve using the actual front of the car if we weren't all such sticklers for screen accuracy as we have been in the recent past.
Yeah. I guess that's the point, isn't it? Is that if you were going to design a new Transformers toy from the ground up, new character, there wouldn't be any fake parts on it, would there? Because there'd be no need for it necessarily, because you're not trying to reference something that wasn't a toy originally,
right?
That from the far flung past or whatever. You'd just make a new toy design that could turn into whatever it was supposed to be, and the parts would move in the way that they were supposed to, I guess.
That's actually quite a lovely homage to G1 Bumblebee, isn't it? That the front ends up in the feet.
Yeah, it is a little bit, yeah. I've not even thought of that, but you're absolutely right.
I think that's it with the faux parts as well, sometimes. You have to really appreciate what the engineers are doing, like the level of skill and sort of the, ingenuity on display there with some of the ways they move these parts into places you would never expect them to go to get the sort of the fake parts. It's incredible, and I think it's quite underappreciated what they've done to give basically what the fans have been asking for years, this constant drive toward accuracy.
I 100% agree with that. And actually, I would go one step further and say that, for me, I don't know how many Bumblebee movie toys there are out there of that character, but can you imagine if they all transformed in exactly the same way? Do you know what I mean? Like, the chest just becomes the front of the car and off you go. It'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it? For me, there was something really different with this one, just being like, holy cow, look, it's going off on its own complete tangent here and almost going around the houses to achieve a pretty decent result. And it's not only clever, that's more fun to me because it's more creative, it's more unexpected, and just a bit different. I like seeing those solutions.
That was so much of the fun of what brings you into Transformers in the first place, is discovering the transformations, isn't it? For the first time. It's all quite exciting. And I think that's what you get when you get different variations of the same design, like the many different Bumblebees and stuff like that, is how different they are and how they approach it in different ways. And it's just quite exciting to discover a new version every now and again.
So playing devil's advocate, just to kind of wrap this one up, is there ever a situation in which either of you chaps would consider fake parts not appropriate for Transformers toys?
No, not really.
I would say if the actual inclusion of the fake parts was to the detriment of how fun a toy is to handle. Because your question was originally, do fake parts make bad Transformers? Well, a bad Transformer, I guess, is one that's not fun. It's not fun to play with. It's not fun to pick up and enjoy. And if the fake parts have the degree to which they've gone to incorporate them has actually made it a negative experience to handle the figure, then maybe so.
Ooh.
A very, very good explanation. There you go. Nice.
See, now that's made me rethink things, because a lot of the sort of modern masterpieces and stuff I'm not keen on, like Hound, because and a lot of it's the hoops they've jumped through to get that accuracy. And I never really thought of it like that.
That's one thing. It's like hoops jumped through to obtain accuracy, so therefore certain parts need to move that you'd rather not move, and it's kind of like, oh, that wasn't fun. But if it's actually the sole inclusion of, hey, he's got a different grill underneath his this, that, and the other, and that makes it unpleasant to extract that grill, that I think is a bit more of a niche complaint than just... For example, I'm thinking of very simple things like on some of the Masterpiece toys or third-party figures, there were certain very thin panels that you may have had to compress or fold over just to make it a bit more accurate looking, and the actual act of doing that was a real stress point and an unpleasant experience. You think to yourself, I'd really rather not have to do that just for the sake of this. Then that is not something that's adding to the experience of handling this toy, but it might look great on a shelf as a result. I mean, that spotter backpack, for example, on
it's hideous.
On Fans Toys,
That one bit that rolls, that one tiny bit.
Yeah, okay, it achieved the thing of making it a bit more compact, but if you never ever want to handle that figure again, was it worth it, chaps?
Yeah. But that's, as you say, that's kind of its own topic, isn't it? That's if anything, that's screen accuracy, and to what degree, it kind of influences things like design, transformations, all of that clobber. Whereas this is, as you said, Maz, it's very specifically just, does the inclusion of like a fake grill equal bad transformation? And I agree, I don't think it does.
Only if you've defined transformation as 100% reuse of vehicle mode parts in robot mode parts, and therefore the designer has solved a puzzle, a design puzzle, and therefore deserves full appreciation.
I guess it's like it's not the same thing, but it's like those Ocular Max Combaticons, isn't it? They set out with the goal of no parts forming. That's what they said they would do. And so if there was an element of parts forming, you would be a bit like, okay, you've not achieved that. So yeah, I guess if the designer said we won't use fake parts to transform, a Masterpiece Optimus Prime, and then they did, then yes, that would be a bit erroneous. Actually, the only one I can think of that I was less keen on, or maybe didn't work for me so much in recent memory, was one of the Stunticon sets, the DX9 set, their Motormaster, which is the one with the
Motormasterer.
Yeah, exactly. Motormaster. It's the extremely long Motormaster. It's a fun toy, actually. Like I will say, despite all the ridiculousness of the alt mode and that, it is a fun toy. And the transformation is actually quite good fun. But it inevitably has a lot of fake parts, as any Masterpiece style Motormaster will. That's the one for me of the three that we've had, where you can obviously see that the shins are the front of the cab, and then you've got a small cab for the feet. So it's very obvious when you look at it, and it's one of those when you see it, you can't unsee it. So then you're just seeing this tiny little cab feet next to this massive cab shin, and it's bizarre, honestly.
So hang on, not only do you get like extra length in vehicle mode, like extra trailer part, do you also get extra cab parts?
Oh yeah.
So then it's Motor Master.
Yes, I guess so. This was one that actually made me laugh because I posted a picture of the Fans Toys one, and I mistransformed it, and it had, instead of decompressing the feet, because the Fans Toys one's very clever how it transforms, and so the feet kind of shrink down because bits of the cab kind of fold away to kind of shrink the cab to a smaller size, if you will, so that it looks right for the feet. But I posted it mistransformed with the huge feet, like big clown feet, and was just like having a laugh. But someone replied saying that I can't remember exactly what they said. It was ages ago now, but someone replied just saying how terrible it was that modern toys couldn't capture what the G1 toys were able to do 40 years ago, because the original Motormaster toy didn't need fake parts to get the feet the right size. And I'm like, dude, it's a totally different thing. It's a completely... Do I understand what you're talking about? No, because it's completely different. Do you know what I mean?
G1 Motormaster is well renowned for having exceptionally good proportions, isn't it?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
It's a beacon.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought it was such a funny thing. And can you imagine that, like, if you wanted that cab to be the same size as your MP10 in truck mode or whatever, how big the Motormaster robot would be?
You would just have massive feet, massive clunkers.
You either get massive feet or you get... I mean, how big would... If his feet were the size of MP10 in truck mode, how tall would that be? I guess it would be as big as the combined mode almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just ridiculous. You'd be talking about like a 20-something inch toy at least. So to me, it was just one of those where it was like, I think I kind of started replying, and then I think there were some replies, but after a while I was like, oh, whatever, man.
You realised what you were doing with your life. You realised where the time in your life was going.
You do kind of get to that, don't you? Where you just think, there's I don't need to convince you here. You either agree with me or you don't. I don't mind.
Dislike.
Yeah. Well, now that's the solution. Now, just whop in a dislike. I have done it since, actually. I have.
I knew you'd come around.
Yeah. I'm only 2 or 3, but just where I'm like, someone's left a particularly negative comment on something that I like, and I'm like, oh, I really can't be arsed with this. I'll just drop a dislike and move on. That's fine.
Why does your love hurt so much, Sixo?
Yeah, exactly. I know you ask yourself that all the time.
We're both going to be asking you once we're finished up here. Oh, what did you dislike? Tell us.
Yeah. I don't know if I can remember now. I'll have to seek it out.
You've done that much disliking. You can't remember any of them.
Only on your post, Liam. Don't worry.
Well, you know how Twitter's got like tweets and replies, likes. Should just be a dislikes tab. Just what's that person dislike?
Yeah, that would be funny.
Oh,
yeah, really
think of the stirring.
What has Sixo disliked this week?
The Transformers will return after these messages.
Okay, well, it's time for our sponsor segment. So we're in that bit of the pod where we have a look at tfsource.com and see what they've got in stock this week that's sort of caught our eye or kind of, fancy a bit of a look at. And loads of stuff at the moment. Most of it from ex-transbots, actually, I think.
It's just taken over the page.
Oh, man. It's insane. It's insane how much stuff they've got out at the moment. I mean, I'm not complaining at all. I'm well up for all of it.
What? Well, you say got out. Didn't you just write an article about how much stuff they've got on pre-order?
yeah, I did. I got it up to... I counted it. At the time of writing that article, it was 47 pre-orders that were available for their stuff.
Insane.
And then it went up because they released another 6, but then it went down because they released 2 items. So it's kind of, at the moment, I think it's 51 at the moment, which is just, 51 toys.
Do you reckon their offices have those like live active graphs and bar charts and figures like up for everyone?
Maybe.
We're ahead, chaps.
Yeah, exactly. They probably do. They must do.
1 down, 51 to go.
Yes, exactly. I mean, just keeping up with that many projects in development is just, it's mad to think. So.
He's just designed 6 more car bots. Just get the Motormaster out, but it's got no arm. Get it out.
Big shins.
Yeah, exactly.
Big feet.
Yeah. Get some lazy faux parts in there. That'll sort it. Call it a day.
It's Friday, damn it.
Exactly. Oh, man. But what's catching your guys' eyes at the moment? Anything on there?
Well, actually, yes. Looking at it. I'm not the biggest fan of ex-Transbot stuff, but they've gone and done a yellow Ferrari 512BB, haven't they? They've done a yellow Overdrive. I mean, that's just that's going to be extraordinarily hard to resist.
They've actually done 2. They've done 2 yellow Overdrives,
and the other one with the racing livery. Goodness.
Yeah. It's a beaut, absolute beaut. I really hope the final, because we haven't even seen their their initial, I should say, Omnibot designs in toy form yet. So this is the mad thing.
They're on to the second repaint of the thing they haven't even made.
Right. I think there's I think it might be the Overdrive mold. Yes, the Overdrive mod. They've now got 4 versions of it up for pre-order.
That's spectacular.
They've not even released. Have they released one yet?
Nope, none of them. So it's absolutely mad. So you can pre-order 4 versions of that toy without even having the first one.
Have they got our versions up yet? The glove box and friends.
Oh wow! Ah man, I might have to write to them. I know the designer for XTB a little bit. I might have to write to them and say, "Oh mate, have a word."
Look, I do not need to be a fan of that company's product. Don't do that, okay? Because I will not be able to resist a neon pink Overdrive.
Yeah. You'd have to get it. You'd have to. I'm gonna have.
Imagine the minisode we could do talking about like the inception of glove box sunroof, and
I'll send them an email and I'll say M.A.S. really would like it if you made these toys.
Like they've ever cared what M.A.S. wanted.
No, well, that's a whole other topic. We'll do that in the third-party episode. Yeah. That's for another day. But so apart from ex-transbots, what else is up there? Liam, anything for you?
I'm a little bit out of touch. I've just been following the latest Legacy toys. Are they on there?
Yes, they are. Lift Ticket is up there still.
I like that. I thought Maz would like that.
Bulkhead.
I love the idea of it, and I love that they've basically used the same Wrecker font on the side of the car, but then the hands just sticking out behind the wheels, almost taunting you, kind of.
But you can
it's
take
like
them
a
off.
hand motion,
They just
isn't it?
slide
So-
off like the original toy.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. And you know what? Maybe it would be complete hypocrisy to complain about that in light of the subject we've
Yeah.
just been discussing, right?
So,
So, you know what? Let them be there. It's fine. It's great. Enjoy.
would you think it was lazy, Maz?
Do you know what? I have to admit, that's where my mind went.
Mm.
It's true.
It happens. It happens. We all have varied opinions on things, don't we?
It's like, ha ha, you couldn't find anywhere better to put it. You know, it's just sticking out.
All of the legacy stuff is up on their site now. So yeah, I'm just looking at the page. So they've got the old laser Optimus Prime.
That looks
They've
tremendous.
Got, kickback.
that looks beautiful.
It does look really
Absolutely well up for that, and a Scourge or a Black Convoy repaint.
They've
Yes,
done that
please.
thing
Yeah,
where it doesn't look like they've cheaped out anywhere on it. It looks complete.
From the lower half down, it is just Earthrise Optimus, isn't it?
Well, there we go. That's where they've cheaped out.
Which means that it's really Combiner War Silver Bolt.
Yeah, exactly. All drains lead to the ocean.
And what is Triple Takeover if not a drain?
Right, yeah, it's my little nugget for the day. But then they've got that new skids, they've got the drag strip, they've got all of it. The Prime RC, the bulkhead that split the internet. I mean, God, you took controversial opinions of that bulkhead, right?
Do you know what? You just stick another bulkhead on the end of it and it's a bendy bus.
It's a little
It's
bendy
wonderful.
bus. It made me not laugh. That's the wrong thing. I sound a bit insensitive if I say that. Made me laugh, all that bulkhead malarkey. But I was, because I had no real skin in
You
the
are
game.
laughing.
No, only
That's what you
Made him
did.
continue to laugh.
right. Still chuckling at everybody's misery. No, it was only because I got no real skin in the game with the whole thing. Because I really like, Transformers animated bulkhead, and I love the Transformers Prime version as well. That's all good for me. But I also kind of like the creativity of what they've done with this version. And I think as a G1ified bulkhead, it's kind of cool. I don't know. I kind of like it. I get that people are all like, we don't just want G1 all the time. And I am actually quite sympathetic to that. I think that's a fair point. But this particular one, I thought was all right.
I thought it was great. I thought it was, is it just a nice little update? And I know people say like G1ified, but it's not really, is it now? Because it's just modern Transformersified. Because that's what Transformers tend to look like
Bendy
now.
bulkhead.
Yeah. And you think like...
Bendy
I think-
bulkhead.
They did say, didn't they, that was what they tried to do, though, was make it G1.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's what modern Transformers sort of look like now, isn't it? And we would never have had a G1 bulkhead, so it is new and different. And just,
I look forward to G1 Lockdown.
oh, that'd be cool.
Well, maybe they'll do it. Why not? So, also up for pre-order at the moment, actually, one thing that I am very excited about is the Ocular M.A.S.K protector bots. The first of those, their first aid, is up. Can't wait for that. Really into that. And presume that's on no one else's radar, just mine.
No.
No.
The first aid, I wouldn't bother with any of the others, but I think I would get the first aid because it looks great.
I would say actually that those guys, if it's the same as the Combaticons that they did, they're great
Yeah.
toys individually.
They all look fantastic. It's just there's something special about first aid. I think it's because everyone seems to have owned about 40 of them as a kid.
It's the. Do you think it's the episode as well, the Ultimate Weapon episode, where he has his little moment, his pacifist moment and quits and all of that? Does that ring a bell for you? That was what it was for me with the character.
Yeah, he's quite iconic, isn't he? He's one of those characters that sort of, I don't know, it sort of leaps out, doesn't he? Everyone seems to love first aid.
He's been given some damn fine attention by writers down the years.
Yeah. He's got a lovely design. His like G1 design is beautiful. It's just very blocky, but really nice with it.
Van Man. He's a white van man.
He's Man in Van.
On the back's going to be scratching his butt crack.
Wow. That could be the third party name, just Butt Crack. There you go. Anyway, that's been our TF Source sponsor segment for the day. It was very professional as always.
Classy as
So,
ever.
yeah, absolutely. You've got to assume that they're listening to this and perfectly happy with the content. I don't know. But yeah, absolutely do check out tfsource.com for all your Transformers and third-party needs. Absolutely tons of stuff up there at the moment. Loads of great third-party masterpiece stuff, if that's your jam. Loads of great legacy stuff, all up for pre-order still. You can even stuff like the lift ticket and things like that, which have been quite hard to find, I believe, from various sources. So yeah, check them out now, tfsource.com.
We now return to the Transformers.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our third topic now of the evening, which is probably an interesting one following on from the sponsor segment that we've just done, but it's sort of semi-related anyway. It's third party, and specifically, third party toys, Transformers toys, or if you want to call them Transformers toys. Are they good or bad for Transformers?
They are once, twice, 3 times the party.
There we go. I knew that would come up. It's a funny old name, isn't it? Third party, all of that. But yeah, I'm not so much worried about are they good toys, because I'm sure everybody has their opinions on that. But there's good and bad third party toys. But more what they do. Are they wrong? Let's put it that way. Or like, are they morally wrong? Are they bad for Transformers? Are they the most evil thing ever? Or are they actually helpful in some ways, kind of by bringing people in and things like that where they maybe wouldn't be interested otherwise? So, thoughts, opinions?
I don't think there's enough time left in the episode to cover all of that, but...
That feels like a whole episode.
That's a lot of meat between your buns there.
All right. Shall I pick a different... Shall I pick a different topic?
No, it's great. Yeah. It's like... Can't shy away from it forever. And all of this is staying in, by the way. I'm not losing the meat between your buns joke of this episode, okay?
Maz is like, I've got to get a joke. I've got to have a joke.
You've just been waiting to talk about my buns all evening.
And his meat.
Yeah.
And I cannot lie.
So third-party toys.
Is this still the sponsor segment?
I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on anymore.
All right, yeah, third-party toys. I remember starting out thinking that this was the most heinous offense against the brand ever. It's like, what are you people doing buying this IP-ruining, armchair-designed, and for a time, super low-quality product that was just shocking. I remember the first one I ever handled was the KFC Microbot, which was a Black Perceptor alike. It was so bad. I just thought, look, people are paying loads for this kind of thing? And of course, at that time, it was to fill generations gaps. Fills in generations toy lines. Chug. But yeah, I mean, I've had great experiences with third-party products and shocking experiences that I would never expect to have with official product. Some of the companies that I've dealt with, I don't think they bring anything to the hobby. I don't think they bring anything to the scene. Whereas others... you get the feeling that they really want to provide what fans want, and they don't at least come out as being totally self-absorbed and self-interested. And I like that they're around, and I enjoy communicating with them. It's a real mixed bag, and it's always been a mixed bag. But I guess for me personally, I was completely against it, and then I got into it, and I started to enjoy it a lot. But nowadays, I really tend not to buy unofficial product. Not for any sort of crazy philosophical reason, but anything that brings fans into the hobby has got to be considered a good thing, right?
I guess that was kind of what I was thinking when you were talking there, was that I guess it depends how you see this stuff. If you see it as like an IP infringing evil, where it's like some sort of cash grab and that it's actually taking away from legitimate purchases that people would be making. So if people are buying a third-party Optimus Prime in place of an official toy, official rendition of that character, then maybe that could be considered harmful. But also, in some ways, you could argue, how is it any different than fan art or things that people do sell for cash as well? If you go to conventions, there are artists, or online as well, making money, things like that. And I'm not saying that is how it is, do you know what I mean, or trying to offend anybody or anything like that. I'm just kind of exploring it a little bit. But there are plenty of ways that people, I suppose, show their love, if you like, of the hobby, or celebrate it a little bit for financial.
But what's fan art replacing? Like, if by purchasing fan art, what are you not purchasing? So...
Well, I suppose that's true, and that is a good point. I guess you could also argue that there are plenty of third-party toys that are not replacing anything as well. Plenty of designs.
What are we doing with our Redbubble? We are
right. That's what I thought.
If someone buys a T-shirt from us that has Razor Beast on it, are they then not going to spend that money on an official item of clothing? Yeah. So
but no, I think it's a good point, and I think that's it. It's all very hypothetical, isn't it? Because I was just about to say that as well, as like, are you taking money away that would otherwise be spent on the brand, the official product? And then, that money is then somehow, you would like to think anyway, I'm sure a lot of it is, going to various sources, but there is an element of which that money is pumped back in, because the better the line does, ultimately the more toys you're going to get and everything else. But I've seen a lot of arguments about this. I think it's probably a bit of a misnomer to think that every pound that is spent on an unofficial, or dollar or whatever, that's spent on an unofficial item is taking that away from the official lines, because I'm sure some of it is, but I'm just as sure that it's not exactly equivalent. Do you know what I mean? People don't just set aside a particular budget necessarily and say, well, I will spend only this money on toys. But
some people do, don't they? I mean, you have seen on forums say, oh, I'm going to skip MP11, I'm going to buy the third-party version instead. And then that's exactly what they do. They buy Meteor instead of...
Yeah, that was what I was thinking of as the counter to all of that. I think with all of this, there's two sides to it, isn't there? So, and yes, there will be people that actively won't buy an official toy when they will buy an unofficial third-party toy instead, for sure. And that happens. You could argue that some of those people, at least, maybe wouldn't even be in the hobby, though, without unofficial toys. Do you think that's a fair argument?
Well, there are people who only buy fans toys, aren't there? I've seen people on Facebook say they literally only buy fans toys. Weirdos. But they are out there.
Well, you could say then that that's no good for the official line at all, because there's been nothing that's brought them. Do you know what I mean? They haven't spent a single quid on official toys, so it's sort of a net thing then, isn't
I'm not so sure about that, because if you think about that person might not have bought any Transformers stuff at all, but they're still related to the brand and they're still involved in fan groups and stuff, and it all keeps interest going, doesn't it?
Now, if you're talking about people who specifically only buy fans toys only, and you're saying they're still contributing to the fan group,
but they're still talking about Transformers, aren't they? They must be buying other stuff.
What are they saying?
Fans toys rules.
I know what they say. They say fans toys wins again. Yeah. That's what they always say, those people. They're like, I like fans toys, but you see a lot of fans toys bros, out there, and literally every comment is fans toys wins again. FT for the win. Yeah. That's what they say.
The one fans toys product that really made me happy was Stomp. I remember enjoying that figure to the point, and that actively fueling my enthusiasm for Transformers as a whole. Right. It didn't make me want to focus solely on fans toys and neglect official product. Just like, this is a tremendous figure. What a fantastic experience owning and having this is. Aren't toys great? It had a positive effect, but so much of their stuff didn't on me as well. So
yeah, I think that is the positive of third parties. It's not that they're taking away money from things. They're expanding it for people, and there's more for people to buy. And it keeps people engaged because, like you see, there'll be people buying masterpiece stuff and they'll be buying extra characters, but they're still engaged with the brand. They might not otherwise have been as much. I don't know. I think it just keeps the excitement going for things.
I do kind of, I agree with that, certainly to some extent at least, because I do think that there is an element. Masterpiece is probably the ultimate example, but you do see people who kind of got into Masterpiece almost through third party, and they wouldn't have necessarily gone down the official only route, just for the characters that are available. And it's actually been the fact that you can get, hulking great big combiners and things like that has kind of tempted them along that. And then they will buy official toys on that route as well, because, maybe they think the best Shockwave is the official one or whatever. I don't know. But so I do think that there is some of that, certainly. But there's no way to quantify any of that, really, is there? There's no way to monetarily know, it's had a good or bad impact. I wonder, actually, if Hasbro or Takara even look at it, to be honest, in terms of do they consider the fine. They must at some point.
There have been stories, haven't there? There have been analyses where they've said, okay, we have raised the price of official product to make sure that people who spend money on this product, they have to make a decision about whether they're going to buy official product or unofficial product. So basically trying to price people's budget to a point where they can't afford both, so they have to make a decision, and as a result maybe they've taken their own product to a different level. You could also say, would Hasbro and Takara gone down the route of combiner wars and done generation scale combiners if they didn't have that insight from the third party market that there was a massive market for that? Because obviously third parties they really went there with things like Feral Rex and Ordin and Hercules and all, Green Giant, all that kind of stuff. They went there. People bought it up. They were popular, expensive toys, And so, it's very clear that people will spend money on that. Slap an official badge on it, put some Hasbro Tech magic in it as well, and you get Combiner Wars and stuff like that. And then the same with the direction Masterpiece has gone. Would that really be happening right now if the appetite for it wasn't tapped in some degree by third parties and they witnessed how much money was spent by collectors?
I 100% think that official designers are looking at third-party toys from time to time. Do you know what I mean? In some capacity or whatever. I think you'd be silly to think that they're not. Do you know what I mean? That they must be aware of it, at the very least aware of it. But they, you look at some of the sort of big third-party toys that have been out there over the years, and then when you see an official toy that comes out and think, there must be learnings in this from some of the third-party efforts or whatever. I'm sure there are times where they look at third-party stuff and they think, wow, we could do so much better. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure there's that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there is that.
And they have.
Yeah.
And they have. And in the case of Takara and Masterpiece, I would say very often they consistently do. Do you know what I mean? They often, and that's, I'm a big third-party guy. I love third-party stuff, but often the official toys just have something about them or whatever. Not all the time, but often. And but still, I think they must be aware of it and looking at what's going on or whatever. And maybe it is that. Maybe they do make some decisions based on what's been popular and things like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was a time in history when I remember distinctly I was getting samples of high-end third-party stuff, and then Masterpiece would do something along the same lines, and I'd hold them in my hands and I'd go, here's Bad Cube Sunsurge. Okay, not Sunchode.
I was going to say, you call it Sunchode.
yeah, whatever.
Sunchode.
Yeah. And then, I remember being quite happy with Sunsurge eventually, but then Sunstreaker came along and I thought, that is comprehensively a different thing. But then also, I realized Masterpiece got to a level of complexity with things like Megatron, which I've absolutely adored. And then I received Fans Hobbies Overlord and thought, that is simplicity at this scale and aesthetic. And my God, this thing is fantastic. I will go to that before I go back to Megatron. But it was a complementary thing. It wasn't a replacement thing. So yeah, it was really obviously in one direction at one point, but then also I think it kind of evolved, that whole comparison between the two of them.
Yeah, I think in a way, third party has sort of found its niche again in a funny kind of way. I don't know, not everything, you're still getting your same characters done over and over, but there are the way that third party has gone, it has become more experimental, where official lines are not always, because you are seeing, I'm thinking about some of the third party stuff that I own that is, I think, very, very creative, stuff like that. Rolling Thunder, Optimus Prime.
Yeah, wow.
I'd never expect to see an official toy of that. Certainly not with all the metal and features it's got and, the way that it's made. It's like a true one-off thing. It's a real beauty. But that, to me, is top-tier third-party stuff, and that's the kind of thing where I think the scene does it really well, because it's something that you don't even know that you want, but when it arrives, you're like, wow,
Wei
so
Jiang
cool.
Commander. I mean, I know Wei Jiang got busted, but that M01 Commander.
That was cool.
It's like they've taken Evasion Optimus Prime, made it huge, made it more complicated and complex, and then it's just wow. That was a real incredible wow moment of that's a great thing to do, and what execution.
Definitely. I mean, that obviously strays into a kind of another topic of knockoffs and things, but I'd suggest that we don't go there tonight. Do you know what I mean? I think that's its whole... That's like another league, isn't it, of debate and everything. But that is something that we should come back to another time for sure, about knockoffs specifically. But yeah, I mean, that I would almost say you couldn't really call that thing a knockoff, more of a kind of inspiration, of another source. I don't know. It's
and yet still at its core theft.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. And it is, isn't it? And all of it is IP theft. That's the thing. And
you've got to ask yourself, are you a thief, buddy?
Are you asking me specifically? I don't know.
Just all ask ourselves, really, and what we buy. Right. Are you supporting theft?
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because yeah, you are, to some extent, you are supporting IP theft, I guess. But then there is also the argument that actually, if Hasbro wanted to at any stage, or Takara, they could just shut this all down. Do you know what I mean? And there's been no real suggestion there's the whole Wei Jiang thing, of course, and Fans Toys, I think, evidently had a bit of grumble or whatever. But there's always been this kind of feeling that all is okay, or kind of, it's all kind of accepted, isn't it, to some degree, as long as these people don't fly too close to the sun with it. And I think in Fans Toys' case, there was some suggestion that they just got too on the radar. Do you know what I mean? And
they were doing a lot of stuff that was deliberately replacing Hasbro stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think, wasn't there a thing with their Grimlock head that they made? And was it a couple of shops were asked not to stock it because it looked very similar to the official toy?
TF Nation or Assembly, I think there was a Hasbro employee was there, wasn't they, looking for those?
Okay, is that right? So, interesting. But yeah, it is a total grey area. And some people won't see it as a grey area. Some people just see it as...
I imagine they will see it as people like us maybe just convincing ourselves that it's a grey area and trying to justify what we've supported maybe now, in the past. And, I have to admit there's an element of that. If we really wanted to be strict and black and white about it, I would never spend a penny on third-party products. I don't these days, but, I have. But then I used to buy stolen test shots too. So, wow, I suck.
You're the thief.
I'm the worst.
Little Icelandic police coming around for you now. That's it.
So to get back to the topic then, is it legitimately bad for the brand?
No.
I would say no, because I don't think the brand has ever been stronger.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's as a result of third party, but
And you can see how much of it has been shaped by third parties now, by the direction it's gone with collectors and things like that, like the character choices, the obscurity now. We always used to say they'll never do that, wasn't it? It was Combiners was always one. They'll never ever go back to doing Combiners like that again. And then they did it. And Power Dashes, everything like that. All these different characters that I don't think you'd have ever seen if they hadn't noticed the appetite on... It'd be fan sites and stuff. They will be seeing all these third party
Headmasters.
Yeah.
Headmasters.
All of this. And I think that's what they will obviously have been looking at. They're obviously aware of it because we've seen it in official photos, haven't we? We've seen, like in designers' backgrounds, we've seen third-party toys on shelves. Like, remember the Ultra Magnus upgrade kit was always in one of the designers' offices.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a picture of it. Yeah, for sure. So,
there's always
but that person was summarily executed, so I don't know.
Right.
That was worth
Never
it.
seen.
He started Fans Toys.
But I kind of agree. I honestly think that it's a fair point, isn't it? Without access to numbers and without really getting a peek behind the curtain and knowing what discussions are had, the fact that the brand is doing seemingly better than ever, and putting out all kinds of wonderful product.
There are lots of happy people around.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's getting what they want.
There's never been more appetite for Transformers.
That's why they're unhappy.
Yeah. There's never been more appetite, has there? There's more Transformers toys year on year than certainly any of us can keep up with, and yet the third party scene continues to go arguably from strength to strength as well. Do you know what I mean? And you see more new third parties popping up all the time. People often talk about the third party bubble. Will it burst? I've seen no sign of that. Do you know? I don't know, but it strikes me that the whole thing's still continuing apace. You've had individual companies struggle, like Make Toys and things like that, but it's still going. Do you know what I mean?
I do think there has been a negative, and I think that has been with the way it shaped what Hasbro and Takara do, because I do think Transformers now has pivoted a bit too much to being adult and collector focused, and rather than for kids. And I think in some ways, that probably be my controversial opinion on Transformers, I think it's being drowned and strangled by adult collectors, really, because that's mostly what it is now. And I think we're kind of losing that fun and imagination, and it's becoming very much a case of not just G1, but very, targeted at us, not kids anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta love things like Robots in Disguise 2015 for not being that.
Yeah.
You've got to love lines like that for giving us a robot lobster car and things like that,
A moose and a wolf. But I mean,
Right.
But you look at how those things are sort of derided, like by I suppose the adult fandom, but they just don't seem to catch on in that same way. And it does a lot of times when you look at the way those toy lines are marketed and stuff, it doesn't feel like it has the same focus as everything else does now, like it once would have.
And do you think that's as a result of third party in some way? Do you think the third party kind of pushed or accelerated maybe that adult orientated aspect?
I do, because I think, like I was saying earlier, I think it wasn't the only thing, but it's a factor where Hasbro saw where there was a lot of money by going for collectors. So now you're getting all the lines you see in shops, it's mostly Generations, isn't it? And you'll see some Cyberverse stuff or whatever. But you've lost that. Like we would have had the old RID or the Armada Unicron trilogy, all of those things, Prime, where they were the focus. And it's instead that like Cyberverse feels like the backseat passenger, doesn't it? Rather than like Masterpiece and all these things. I think that stemmed from third party stuff sort of dragging it in that direction. It's not their fault, but it's like Masterpiece and all of that. So.
Totally see what you're saying. I had to laugh recently with the reveal about, I think it was Lift Ticket actually, talking about that one again, that really made me chuckle because it is at the heart of it. It's a children's toy. Because of the way it's been sold, will it ever make it into the hands of any children? No. Are any children going to own that red hoist? Do you know what I mean? Actually, how many? Because it's being sold in relative sort of scarce quantities or whatever. Seemingly, it's an exclusive.
Mr. Sixo. Yes. Diaclones are not for children.
Right, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, it's adult collecting 101 here. But it's a funny old thing, isn't it? Because it is a homage to a toy from 40 years ago, but still fundamentally it's a kid's toy.
Yeah.
But it's not really going to make it into the hands of many children. So I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it's a thing that occurred to me.
Because you look at something like Generations.
Something that occurred to me. It's never gonna make it into children's hands. 40-year-old toy. 40-year-old toy.
Man, the ice has frozen him up, hasn't it?
Yeah, wow.
But not his vocal cords. But yeah, with the Generations, ostensibly it's a children's toy line, but it's never marketed as such, is it? And it's like that. Yeah. And you even see the way people react to it online, and it's very grown up, isn't it? It's so much criticism all of the time. That's where it all seems to come from.
Yeah, grown up is the first phrase that came to mind when I think of the criticism of those toy lines.
But I mean, it's adults, isn't it? It's not children talking about these toys. And
is it
physical
yeah. On their birth certificates.
Right. Well, we're kind of getting into a whole other area here, I fear. But let's answer then. Let's definitively answer the topic at hand. So, third party, good or bad for the brand? What do we think?
Rumble.
Or okay, let me put it another way. Third party, is it bad for the brand?
No.
Not today.
Okay, that's fine. I can accept that.
I thought Maz was going to have to phone a friend then to find out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, ask the audience. But no, there's. I think it's a very difficult topic, isn't it? Let's be fair. And there are
nuanced,
probably two. Yeah, very heavily nuanced, and lots of shades of grey or whatever colour you want to think of it as, but
it's just lots of shade.
Yeah, lots of shade. Definitely lots of shade.
Lots of positives, some negatives, There's a lot there, isn't there?
Yeah, there are definitely some negatives, and some of which Maz touched on at the start. And we'll do third party as another topic another time. I'm sure we can really kind of get into some of the curios of the third party unofficial scene.
Some of the heroes and villains.
Yeah. You got your little storybook just waiting to go, didn't you? Some of the tales from third-party review scene. But that's for another day. So, we're going to do one last, final, quick debate. Hopefully a quick one, knowing us. But we're gonna keep it light and breezy with this one, but hopefully an easy one to solve. But it's another question related to G1 fiction, specifically the 1986 Transformers movie, and it's another hotly contested topic. It's the identity, or the original identity, I should say, of the characters Cyclonus and Scourge, because of course they are presented in the film as you see all the dying/dead Decepticons kind of floating, and really we don't know if they're dying or dead at that stage. They might all be dead, but they're flying, through space. Unicron picks them up. You see the whole reformatting sequence, and then you get Scourge and two sweeps that are presented in the frame, and you get Cyclonus and a second Cyclonus referred to as Armada, his Armada, who's never seen again. But the big question has always been which Decepticons were turned into these characters, and does it matter? So, thoughts on that one, lads?
I think it does matter a little bit.
Okay.
Because if you think of the theme of the movie is losing all of your old friends, and then you get a bunch of new friends. Maybe some of them didn't even get toys.
Wow.
It's just the whole thing, right?
I never thought of that.
And if you're like me, I loved those jets and those cone heads and Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp. It's bad enough we lost Starscream that way. That hurt. And then what you get is you get Thundercracker and Skywarp, and it's just fixed in your mind from years of, Transformers, Sunbow, Hasbro doctoring, and then they get turned into minions again, and they were always a lot more loyal than Starscream were, Thundercracker and Skywarp, and I just think it's the natural direction to go. Well, obviously those two prominent goons became the next range of prominent goons, but when you look at the footage, it's pretty obvious it's not the case.
I know.
You just have to come to terms with the fact that Skywarp became the dude in the background.
That it disappears.
And he's gone. Sorry, guys, Skywarp's gone.
I know. The purple and the cool purple one.
The Insecticons.
That's Alpha, yeah.
Of all the characters to become minions as well. It's the Insecticons who are like the rebels all the way through the cartoon, aren't they?
Right. Like Bombshell was a proper little git.
Yeah.
Wasn't he? He wasn't just like falling in line. So
they were always working to kind of undermine Megatron, weren't they? And, foil his plan.
And then he becomes like super loyal Cyclonus, which is what Skywarp was at the very start of Transformers cartoon. He was the one who revived Megatron, and he was there, and he was there, man.
I actually think that this wouldn't be a debate. I think people would be happy if Bombshell was Scourge and the Insecticons were the Sweeps or whatever. I don't know.
No, then I would have been sad because we would have lost Thundercracker.
But but I think if Thundercracker and Skywarp had become Cyclonus and the Armada, maybe that would be different somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I never ever thought of that. See, that would make sense.
If the Seekers had become the Cyclonuses, Cyclonus Psy, and if the Insecticons had become the Scourge and Sweeps, maybe there would have been some distinction there. But it's random, isn't it? It's totally random. So, I mean, for the record, in the footage, what you see is Thundercracker becoming Scourge in the front of the frame, assuming that is Scourge.
I mean, if you were going to visually communicate this as an artist, you couldn't make it clearer, could you? Let's put name tags above them and arrows.
The intent is totally clear.
The blue one becomes the blue one.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, see, that's where you start getting it. No, but of course, Bombshell's got a bit of purple on him as well. Yeah, carry on.
So and then Kickback and Shrapnel become Sweeps, seemingly. Bombshell becomes Cyclonus
because he's right there in front. He's the
dude.
furthest towards the camera.
Yeah.
He's got a bigger flex on.
Yeah, he does it. He does the big flex. He does the muscles, doesn't he? Yeah, absolutely. And Skywarp becomes Armada, who then is legit never seen again. Yeah. I mean, that dude's gone.
I think it's just too jarring to imagine that little bug Bombshell becomes this legendary warrior Cyclonus who is made of loyalty and logic and sense and awesomeness. It's just hard to reconciliate those two things.
So is that why this is still a topic?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's
because people can't get over the idea that the character that they're less keen on becomes the really cool character in the next season. Because Bombshell was never really a fan favourite, was he?
No, and he's not the one you associate with a super sleek and sexy black and purple flying megajet, is he? It's just, nah.
So what would your preference have been then, Maz, to see Thundercracker as Scourge and Skywarp as Cyclonus? Is it the Skywarp becoming Cyclonus bit that's like the real point for you?
I was never even that keen on Skywarp because Skywarp is obviously a div. And Bombshell isn't. It just makes more sense, doesn't it? Like, Bombshell isn't a div,
but surely
Cyclonus isn't a div.
But surely Skywarp being Armada makes sense because Armada just disappears like Skywarp would. He's probably just like popped out of somewhere else. Teleported out of the movie.
Noped right out of there.
Noped out of there.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted those guys to still be in it in some way. That beneath it, it's still them. Just like beneath Galvatron, it's still kind of Megatron. He just kind of wanted Thundercracker and Skywarp to still be there. But that's really thin and flimsy reasoning. It's really clear from the visual presentation of those scenes who's who. Like, no doubt.
Liam, do you have a preference?
No, not really. I remember as a kid trying to figure it out, but I was never that bothered. I was more like, just like, oh, new toys, new characters, and they've gone.
New toys.
It wasn't until I became an adult, and I remember like started to get into the fandom and stuff. I remember people being like, really, man, planted flags on hills of who it had to be, and I was like, it doesn't matter.
It causes so much disagreement, doesn't it? It's just one of those where people are like willing to present their their TED talk or whatever about why there's an alternative explanation for some of it and like little visual clues or references. But I think it is pretty clear who's who. I guess the bigger question is does it matter actually? Because like if they're, yes, you could argue that, you know, Megatron becoming Galvatron is an important thing because he's the leader, and there are some clues later on that actually he's retained memories and things like that, you know. But that never happens with Cyclonus and Scourge, does it? There's never any
so
indication.
Different. They're so new. There's
never any clue, even a smidge of a hint that they remember anything from before.
Oh no, Cyclonus, he says something in one of the episodes, doesn't he? He makes a reference to his past, not as a particular character, but he says something where it suggests that he remembers the past.
Ooh, I don't remember that.
I could be wrong, but I could have sworn I was rewatching one recently, and he just said something about, you know, very briefly, as if you...
You sure it wasn't Judd Nelson?
Yeah, it was a haunted toilet.
One of Liam's dreams.
Yeah.
Judd Nelson and a toy toilet, and Cyclonus was there, and he said this thing, and yeah,
it probably was, to be fair.
He'd probably eaten some pickled onion Monster Munch 5 minutes before.
The worst flavour.
He was in a bit of a fever or something. I don't know, itchy head fever. But no, I think there's no real indication that it matters. So I guess that's the thing. For all we know, Unicron just used them as like, I don't know, reject parts essentially.
Yeah, maybe they were all dead, and he injected existing personalities into them. Couldn't do it to Megatron because he was still sort of alive. So he got this weird hybrid with Leonard Nimoy's excellent voice. God, it's a great movie, wasn't it? I don't care what anyone says. What a wonderful,
amazing movie.
Cartoon art that movie is.
I tell you what's not up for debate is that what you've just said right there, because you're spot on, my friend. Absolutely.
Mazza's first right opinion.
I know. I will treasure that one.
And on that bombshell,
okay, so definitive answer then.
Sailed right past it.
I'm just going to segue past that one. Honestly, I'm just like, noped out of that one. So on that horrific pun, so let's set this one to bed then. So are we agreeing then? Thundercracker is Scourge, Kickback and Shrapnel, Sweeps, Bombshell, Cyclonus, Skywarp.
I thought Bombshell was Skywarp. Didn't we agree that?
No.
Bombshell is Skywarp.
No.
Oh, I'm just going to leave that in there. Yeah. Just going to leave it there.
Just inventing your own fiction. What are you doing?
That's not the first time that's happened.
Have you had to balance out the one right opinion with a wrong opinion? Is that what...
as wrong as it could get.
Yeah, had to readjust the scales.
You're going to cast Judd Nelson in it, honestly. Anyway, that's hopefully that's put that one to bed. There you go. Okay, so that's been controversial opinions. Maybe part one. I don't know. We've got a lot more in the tank with this one. I got to tell you, there are no shortage of hotly contested topics in the realm of Transformers. So if you did enjoy this particular episode and topic and everything, and you would like to hear us do more, I mean, let us know on social media. We're right out there. You can find us on Twitter at @triple_takeover. Same on Instagram as well, @triple_takeover, or Facebook, just Triple Takeover, just all one word, no underscore on that one, just for a bit of difference. So hit us up, let us know. Would you like to hear more controversial opinions in a future episode, a kind of part 2, if you will, or whatever? And let us know some topics as well. Do you know what I mean? That you'd like us to talk about, specific bits that we can kind of put to bed. Just really kind of get the definitive Triple Takeover thoughts on that. But we do have one more question for tonight, don't we, Maz?
Yes. We have a tier where our patrons can... I'm still calling them patrons. They can ask us a question that we will answer on the show. Before we do the question, I just want to give the typical shout-out to all of our Sixo's butlers, and the list has grown again, so this is going to be an even longer list this time. So a big thank you to Nick, Jonathan, False Logic Howard, Dean Watts, Danny Roberts, Chris C137, Andy, Cannon, Preston, Brian Fox, Chris, Billy Ho, Spiderfather, Adam Shoemaker, Zachary Blader, Matt, Stephen Perkins, Bad Saturday, Justin Massaro, Dave Dalrymple, Snowcrack, Julian Trombetti, Gio Kaiser, Yusufa, John Pearl, Cliff Saras, Loxer, and Troysef.
And a partridge in a pear tree.
Right.
Exactly.
4 glorious tears. And patron question is from Julian Trombetti, and it is about the Unicron trilogy. Do you think that Hasbro Takara will start revisiting the Unicron trilogy more often in the future as people my age that watch the shows growing up start aging into the independent adult world? Or do you think we'll just have to keep praying for third-party recreations?
They're already doing it. So, yes.
Yes. I think they will.
Would be very surprised if they didn't start plundering those depths of that fiction for that generation and that age group. Yeah,
for sure.
Very much think it will happen.
I'm well up for it as well. I think it's great. That Legacy Metroplex is cool. Isn't it? That looks fun.
Yeah, and there's rumours, there were leaks, weren't there, of the Legacy Armada style Scream as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I'm well up for that.
And the previous generation toy, that was really good as well.
Yeah. Well, there was always talk, wasn't there, because they did the Armada Prime, the grey prototype that they unveiled and then never released, and everybody was like, when's it going to come out?
And they did the Cybertron Prime, didn't they, as well, recently? The Galaxy Upgrade Optimus.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. But I think they will do more, and I think Legacy... it's been surprising to me that actually Legacy so far has been mostly G1, but I think they'll definitely do it. Okay, fantastic stuff. So again, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/Triple Takeover. Or is it? No, it is just Triple Takeover, isn't it? Yeah, Triple Takeover. Patreon.com/Triple Takeover. Check us out for our 4 glorious tiers. Already given you the other addresses, but there is also our Redbubble as well. This is a bit of a long one, but it's redbubble.com/people/Triple Takeover/explore. And there you can find all kinds of designs, some man-in-pig stuff, some weirdly coloured Omnibots, lots of things like my butler, Sixo's butler, actually on there as well with his little white gloves, bless him. All on t-shirts and leggings and backpacks and all kinds of clobber. So go and check that out and get yourself kitted out.
We actually had a merch request recently to do some apologetic ramp merch. So again, hit us up with some ideas for merch. If you want to see something from the show on a t-shirt or an apron or a pair of leggings, just give us a shout.
Christmas stockings, telling you. That's where the money is.
All right, yeah. Also worth mentioning that our sponsor, just one last time, tfsource.com. So please do check them out for all your Transformers and third-party needs. And loads of great stuff in stock with them at the moment. So, lads, where can they find you on social media? Liam?
I can be found as Toybox Soapbox on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
I can be found as @TFsquareone on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter.
And I'm @SixoTF on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So that's it then. The controversial opinions for today have been laid to rest. So I hope that you've enjoyed that. Let us know if you'd like us to do more in the future. And thank you very much, and good night.